Hello everyone and welcome to e-commerce webinars all about how to improve your performance. So what I've done is, my name's Lucia, I'm from Modelo Insights. Over winter I asked 21 different e-commerce experts the things they'd learned from their data last year they're going to use in their business this year to help themselves and their clients grow. I produced a performance report that's on my website deloinsights.com, and then from the report, once that came out in April, I've then been interviewing with smaller numbers on the webinars, a couple of experts each time, exploring a theme. Today we're talking about ways to boost your conversion retention rate. I'm very pleased to be joined by Carolina and Ritesh. Carolina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Lucia. Hi everyone, I'm Carolina. I'm a conversion rate optimization specialist. So I help brands, e-commerce brands, to get more sales by improving their site experience and turning more of their existing site visitors into buying customers. And before I started my consultancy about 18 months ago, I've got a kind of long career in retail and e-commerce at big retailers like Amazon and Mr. Porter. And do you want me to cover my tip now, Lucia, as well? So my tip was around the importance of visual evaluation. So our brains process images 60,000 times faster than text, and we have a really short window of opportunity to grab a website user's attention. We have 0.05 seconds. So those kind of two statistics together really point to the opportunity around transferring essential information into a more visual approach.
Thank you very much. By the way, I do apologise, we seem to have a buzzing on our line. We can't work out why it is, but please bear with us. Ritesh, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Lucia. So I'm Ritesh. I'm the founder of MRE Digital. We're system integrators and also e-com experts. So my background is working in email marketing and in e-com platforms. And when we started the business as consultants, we were helping customers with their growth rate and CRO. And my main tip is about customer retention. We've really realized that there are customers and clients who want to get new customers, which is amazing. They want to get new traffic, but they tend to forget their current customers. And with all my history working in email marketing and the push of keeping customers and keeping them in the flow, I've realized that retaining customers is just as important. So yes, that's our focus for the call.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ritesh. I'm very excited about today. If anyone's live streaming and wants to ask a question, the chat's open, by the way, so I'll field those. So Carolina, starting with the conversion side, you talk a lot about why paying attention to these visuals is so important. But really, could you give us some examples of where this is working really well and what kind of visuals people need to focus on and what's upcoming?
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, our brains are much faster at processing visuals than text. And we can see from our own kind of experience with interacting with websites how quickly we want and need that information. And our consumption as well is at an all-time high in terms of what we're consuming online. So we are very time poor as consumers and we want the information quickly. So visuals aren't only kind of a way of aesthetically attracting and engaging your users, but also conveying key product information. So, that goes from product visuals. So when I was at Amazon, we did tons and tons of studies around what kind of imagery is best in terms of showcasing the product. And you'll see big players like Amazon, like Google Shopping, are using a lot of, cut out product imagery on a plain white background, which I know some brands find to be aesthetically, a little bit boring, but it is what's been proven to be best in terms of people being able to compare products, being able to evaluate products really quickly and easily. So product visuals is a big part of it, but then there's loads of other kind of visual elements on a website. So this can be things like icons, using icons to convey delivery information and key information. Things like, we respond much better to star ratings versus like a long text testimonial. We can digest that information instantly. So those are a couple of examples where you can kind of see the importance of getting your visuals right. But then there's a whole host of other things. There's 360-degree view, so being able to see the product from all angles. There's use of video. There's use of lifestyle imagery. As I said, product cutouts are the best for a primary image, but there's definitely a place for lifestyle visuals as well to help contextualize products.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you now, are there any particular product ranges or types of products where this really is so important? Or is it something that whatever you're selling, you need to get this right now?
Yeah, anything selling online is super important to be able to, visually evaluate. People want to be able to see all of the features and details of a product visually, rather than having to read about them in a long reel of text. But there are particular product types that lend themselves more to visual evaluation. So anything in the kind of fashion industry, beauty can be harder to photograph and convey visually, but it's almost even more important then, because the customer can't pick up the product and feel it in their hands. They can't see the texture of the makeup or whatever it may be. So I would really encourage any industry, any sector, to think about how to better visually communicate product details.
That's great. So what kind of tools might you recommend if people want to evaluate their performance, and actually work out, are they making a mistake? Is it working for them on the visual side? What have you used?
Yeah, so great question. I think heat map analysis is really crucial here to see how users are interacting with different parts of the page and different visual elements of that page. A/B testing as well is really important, so you can actually run tests to pit two images or two visual, visual versus a textual evaluation within your product description, for example, and actually measure the incremental impact of one versus the other. So those two things are really important. And then a third tool I'd encourage people to use is Google Page Speed Insights. So obviously, putting more images on the page can affect page latency and load speed. So it's really important to keep an eye on those metrics as well, just to ensure that you're not negatively impacting SEO and user experience as well.
Thank you. So if we were going wrong, or if our website had gone a bit wrong, what kind of symptoms would we expect? You've talked about the page speed being one thing, but what other things would we be looking at from a retailer's point of view or a brand's point of view to understand that it's not working?
Yeah, bounce rate is a really key indicator that something's not quite working on the page. Conversion rate, obviously. And then also kind of taking it a level deeper and understanding, is there a pattern, or can I spot any trends at a product type level or from traffic that's coming from certain sources? Because that can help you identify some of the why behind, things potentially not performing as well as we would expect.
So it's really not just about the metrics, about get to the metric to find the problem, then try and diagnose it and work out, go back to where the problem's coming from.
Yeah, and then running an A/B test, ideally, to really dig in and understand what is it that's gonna shift the needle the most.
So quite involved then. Is AI helping with all of these problems? Is AI coming along? Are you seeing some really good solutions there? Or is it really getting the fundamentals right and understanding what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think a bit of a mix. I think AI, certainly has its place when we're thinking specifically about visual evaluation. Using AI to generate your image alt text for SEO, as long as you're kind of obviously sense checking those and inputting the relevant keywords to start off with, that can be a good kind of time saving exercise, an efficiency driver. But in terms of AI generated visuals themselves, I think they've still got quite a long way to go. So I would approach that with caution, but look at areas where you can kind of take those repetitive tasks and try and streamline those through AI.
That's really helpful, thank you. Now, in terms of actually looking at your conversion rate optimization, looking at one point in time isn't enough. How often would you actually be checking conversion rate optimization? Because in reality, products get loaded every day, don't they? New visuals get added, new bits of software get added to the site. So at any point in time, things can start going wrong with your conversion rate. So have you got some recommendations?
Yeah, so I would always recommend, first of all, setting up a dashboard in whatever platform you're using for your e-commerce store that is really, it's actually got the metrics in there that you are able and that are going to help you, able to track and going to actually help you give actionable insights. So like I kind of said before, understanding one level deeper, so your conversion rate, but actually what traffic sources are driving the highest and lowest conversion rates. And you want to be looking at that ideally like minimum monthly, but ideally weekly, and really plotting trends and seeing, comparing to the previous period or the previous year, and really understanding how things, are they trending positive or negative. And conversion rate can be a bit of a confusing metric because it's an output of traffic and sales or orders. So, you know, if you suddenly have a big drop in your traffic, your conversion rate can look really healthy, but actually it's because of that drop in traffic rather than because of a big increase in your orders. So kind of, yeah, digging a little bit deeper, and obviously for some small businesses who are running their stores themselves, it's difficult to prioritize looking at this very often because there's a million other things they have to do. So I often find it can be the data can be underutilized. So I'd say set yourself up with a really great dashboard that makes it easy for you to spot where things are potentially falling behind.
Yep, and I think you think is a really important focus, don't you, for these smaller brands? It's something they should be looking at. And, you know, why would you say to them, absolutely look at it? You know, what would your key reasons be why they need to be checking this on this monthly or weekly basis?
So yeah, it's a great question because I think a lot of brands don't really know what conversion rate optimization is, or that it's an essential thing, you know, that they need to run their business. But it's never been more expensive to acquire a customer. I think this goes to what Ritesh was saying. I've read a report the other day that said that the cost of acquisition has raised 20% in the last 2 years. So if you are investing in paid ads, you need to be looking at what's happening after the person lands on the site, and actually, which is actually the place of conversion, rather than just focusing completely on the ad creative and testing things there. You need to actually be focused on the site experience to maximize your return on investment. Otherwise, you're just, you know, spending a load of money that's potentially it's like a leaky bucket. And if you're not able to invest in ads, then it's also really important to look at conversion rate optimization, because, you know, you're probably not getting a big influx of traffic, or at least, you know, you might be getting organic traffic, but you haven't necessarily got that steady stream of paid traffic. So you really do need to maximize every visitor that you're getting by removing barriers to purchase and making their site experience smoother and encouraging them to buy more.
Really good. That's a really good answer. Thank you. So, in terms of the data, you're basically saying a lot of the data sits there. It's just people don't know how to use it, or they don't know how to access it. Which would it be?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a mixture of both, and the time poor kind of element as well coming in there, and it can be different for different brands. But I think, like I said, a key to kind of success, setting yourself up for success, is having this kind of dashboard that you understand. It might just be a few handful of metrics that you are important to you, that you can identify through what's happening in your site or what has happened over time. You know, potentially your average order value has dropped a lot, and that's affected your overall sales. So that might be a metric that you want to look at every week to kind of see and focus on. So, you know, try not to overcomplicate things. You're never going to be able to address every single metric, and every single metric is not going to be helpful for your particular brand in terms of an actionable insight. So it's identifying what are those metrics, how to use them, and how to draw actionable insight from it.
Great advice for every single business owner, you know, from small to large, isn't it? To get that data they really need and then keep focusing it, and then focus on the actions as well. So
That's it.
thank you, Carolina. That's really
Yeah,
helpful.
thank you.
I think we're going to move on now to retention. Now, what would you say, Ritesh? At one point, after launch, does retention become an issue? Is there a certain time period, or a certain size, or a certain complexity where it starts to hit?
Sure. So what I tend to find is that retention can become a problem if it's not being thought about when you launch. It's an understanding that when you have a customer, it depends on the size of the product, right? If you've got a product it's quite small, they're not going to use it more than once. Retention really isn't a thought in the mind, but if you've got a product that can be used multiple times and you want to keep those customers, before you even launch, the whole ideal retention has to be there. Because, you know, as Carolina rightly said, the cost of acquisition is getting higher and higher. You've got ads, you've got social content, and people are upping the game every single time. So you can't use the same trick you used last year because someone else has used it. The customers are now used to it, so you have to change. So you've already done the tricky part, getting them in. 6 months down the line, if you've already had that hype period or people are really coming to your site after the amazing launch, if you suddenly forget the customer, then you're losing valuable opportunities there. So definitely when you start, before you launch, it has to be a thought about. But I find it's very important after you launch, after all the pipe is paid, because those are the loyal customers that could keep coming back and actually be driving that revenue on that month when you really need it.
I agree it's important, but I can also understand, as Carolina said, about these busy business owners. They're so busy focusing on their launch that to actually convince them to start thinking about retention so early on
Yeah.
isn't probably going to be in their mindset, is it? So
No.
it's very hard to
No.
actually say, put some time aside to do this on top of everything else you're doing and start monitoring it from the beginning.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one thing where it's you don't have to do it yourself specifically. There are many tools out there, but the
Yep.
number one understanding is market research from the get-go. If you truly know that you've got a product that can be used multiple times, then there shouldn't really be any excuse of, actually, you know what, I haven't got the time. That should be a part of it. If you're selling, for example, a product that or a commodity that people will only use once, it is quite understandable. But then how can you keep that customer happy? Are you selling additional add-ons? So for example, if you're selling a very expensive bike, are you selling the cleaning fluid? Are you selling the maintenance? Are they going to you, or are they going to someone down the high street? It's understanding that, yes, they may not be buying your product, but are they still going to be loyal to your brand? So yes, completely very difficult when you're actually launching a brand. Um, but the market research should be there in the first to say, you know what, these products, I want to keep them, I want to keep them coming back.
Thank you, that's fascinating. In terms of market research, is it in my head? I always think that social selling, the social selling will have a low retention rate than someone, say, buying directly off a website. Is that actually a fact that's borne out? That by channel, different amounts of retention can be expected.
100%, 100%. I think it depending on the brand and the size, social channels can be huge. When we were doing the consulting in the early stages, um, questions for PPC kept coming up. Oh, we want to go down ads. We want to go down this route. But these are brands that have no actual presence. They have no Google presence. They have no social presence. So I like to think of myself, we're all customers, we're all consumers at the end of the day. If you're browsing and you see an ad and then you Google that ad and you see nothing on it, you're not going to trust it, are you? So you need to build up that social channel and then engage with those people, whether it be through live streams, whether it be through, hey, comment for a prize, etc. But it has to be engaging, because the most loyal customer is the one that actually likes the brand and the one that actually engages with the brand. So if you're spending a lot of money and you're spending a lot of time trying to retain new customers, you could be blasting it out, but if they're not really fans of your brand, they're not going to buy. So I'm seeing social channels as being a key indicator. If you're getting a good lower engagement on your socials, you're probably going to see a lower engagement on your website.
And where does email marketing fit into this? I know you've got this kind of email marketing background, but obviously on the social channel, there's no real email chain. So, so many of the sales are happening directly on the TikTok shop. So how in that scenario, well, how does it change, depending on how you're selling to how you have a kind of loyalty scheme?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think email has been something where every year someone's going to say, well, email is dying. The fact of the matter is, it's not. If you look at the statistics, it's always growing. What has impacted email is the number of like spam emails is something that people were doing. However, with the GDPR changes, with spam changes, so, all these systems are actually stopping all these like junk mails going out. So
Yep.
actually, we're now in a period where email is still hot again, but customers are getting the right emails through. It puts an onus on the businesses to actually send out correct emails to clean their markets, and then they can start sending out, hey, the abandoned baskets, post-purchase loyalty programs. The abandoned process is one of my favorite processes, because Carolina mentioned A/B testing. You can A/B test everything in email, and once you find that sweet spot for a specific customer, you then dig into the age, you then dig into gender scenarios, just likes and dislikes. And then as soon as they've got the right email and they start opening it and start going onto the site, they'll be like, oh wow, it's personalized. It's what I'm viewing. Why wouldn't I browse a bit more? And then those little touch points end up in a really successful conversion.
So would you be comfortable with tools that sit on the website and do that in an automated way? Or would you be more looking for an automated email flow which happens based on their activity?
It's a really great question, actually. I think there are tools at the moment where if you can track customers' records as long as the cookie is accepted, of course, to track their journey, and then depending on what they're viewing, get an abandonment email, say, hey, you hit this. Um, However, most email tools at the moment, they do have really good tools to say, this person came from this UTM, they've stayed on this long, and then you can then retarget those people. But even in that process, from the loyalty retention perspective, it is saying, okay, are we going to focus on the customers that haven't bought, or are we going to focus on the customers that have been buying but hasn't bought in the last 6 months? Why? And it kind of, when you're in a store, you can remember all the customers that come. The loyal customers, they come every week, they buy certain food, they buy a certain item. It's very difficult to do that on a large scale website when you've got millions of customers coming through. However, those statistics, if you've got a loyal customer that hasn't bought in 6 months and you've forgotten about them, either there's something wrong there or they just haven't got the time. But there's no harm in you actually reaching out as long as they're still subscribed. My idea is if they haven't unsubscribed, they still want you to reach out. So definitely use that as a tool.
So more of a segmentation approach by dividing the customers up into different pots and then look at how they're behaving.
Yes.
And so would you then dedicate your resources, so on the retention side, obviously within the business, you'll need some dedicated resource to manage all the retention. Or would you actually have different kind of retention strategies for the different people and different offers maybe against them, to try and attract these people back? And would you put a budget against different types of customers based on where their lifetime values? Would you go into that much detail?
100%. It's something where, as the more you grow as a business and the more the loyalty becomes a reasoning, you have to invest in that side of it. It's near impossible to just say that one channel or one way of engagement is going to keep my customers, just because what I said earlier, the game is always changing, and where you might not have had a competitor 5-6 years ago, out of nowhere, there's someone's going to come that's going to be cheaper than you with a cooler brand, and you don't want to lose your customer to them. You want to do what you can to keep them. So definitely investing in the right tooling and the right parts. And also, you mentioned there about the value of it. You do want to invest more in what's working. That's like an absolute key aspect. And it seems quite of like, oh, that's what we expect, right? We invest in what works. But there's so many new shiny tools that are promising different engagement tools and like, hey, we can retain your customers better, that actually you focus on what you can do. And then just depending on the size of the business. Again, if you've got a product that is resellable, get a subscription process. Get a nice subscription tool that makes it easy for the customer to actually go onto the site, subscribe and go. If you've got a product that has a yearly maintenance, make sure in that 12-month period that customer knows, hey, the maintenance is due. And that is a good email marketing tool and also a good CRM tool.
So it's so diverse then, isn't it? Retention as a topic, it's not one solution fitting all.
No, it's not, and it's that's why it's so fun to talk about and discuss, because it's something where if it was a one shoe fits all, no customer would go anywhere. But no one wants that, right? We're in a free market. As a customer, as a consumer, we want to check out places, and it is every competitor's right to try and take a customer from you. That's the whole point of this ecom game. It's we've got customers here. How can we promote our brand so they stay loyal? So it's very easy to say, well, do this, do that, and then you're going to keep them. But realistically, it is a case-by-case basis. But the key methodology on this is where I think every business can do is don't forget why your customers came in the first place. Keep them informed of key changes and make them feel like a human. Because what we really want is we want the experience of going into a store and saying, hey, how are you doing, Ritesh, etc. They know your name, they know who you are. And then replicating that through a website or an email or just something digital. Difficult to do, but even if you can get it a bit right every single day, there's a definite improvement there.
Thank you. Now let's go on to common issues why your retention isn't working. I know you talked briefly about the fact it might be service levels, it might be poor quality products, and then how you can improve it. So if you've got some common reasons why retention fails and what businesses should look at to boost their retention.
Yeah, 100%. The most common reason that I'm seeing is trying to say, you know what, we need more customers. That is probably the number one reason why retention fails, because you suddenly lose focus of what works. It's we've hit a certain level of sales, we want to increase it. So instead of thinking, well, actually, how can we invest in our current stack to improve it? There are too many tools to make it easier to say we can get new customers. I'm just going to invest more in ads. I'm just going to do a site redesign. I'm going to put this massive marketing proposal. Okay, amazing. But then the problem is, if you can't manage, let's say, 10,000 customers, if you can't keep, let's say, a 10% retention rate, how are you going to keep that on 100,000 customers? So, understanding your growth scale, you can grow internally and say, you know, we're going to hire a lot of people, but you have to be ready to handle more customers. And that comes down to, am I delivering correctly? Am I sending the right emails? Are they getting the emails in time? Is my customer support already? All these tools in the business drive retention. So I guess that is the main issue. Businesses want to scale and get more customers, but forgetting that if they can't manage their current ones, fix that first and then scale naturally.
So the customer focus is key, basically. Keep those customers happy, and then they'll come back to you.
100%, 100%. But then there is a level of investment there. You need to keep your site up to date. You need to do the work to make sure that the customers are seeing it. But loyal customers don't just go. It takes a lot for a loyal customer to leave, and it all comes down to experience.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Ritesh. Carolina, have you seen anything on the retention side? I know you were talking more about conversions, but
I think for me, like everything Ritesh said around, that kind of focus on acquisition, I've seen that very prevalently at the moment. And I think, where our ability to run ads has become easier with, AI tools that Meta and Google have put out. So, it becomes easier for small businesses to think, oh, okay, I can maybe manage some ads and they maybe have some success there. But I think I totally agree that it is a bit of a false economy, because you put all your focus and investment and time and money into acquisition, but then you kind of forget about what actually happens on the site, or what is actually happening with your existing customers. So I would really encourage the same kind of caution with thinking acquisition is your silver bullet, because I've seen that lots of times that's not the case. But I think it's easy to think if you want to scale, that's the only way. So it's just thinking about a sustainable way to grow. And I'm not saying there's no place for acquisition. I absolutely believe in it as an area of focus, but I think it can't be a sole focus. It's got to work hand in hand with the larger holistic view of your whole site.
in a way it's almost more tangible though, isn't it? If you run a marketing campaign, you can then see the results of it. Whereas if you've got an internal team working on their existing customers, unless you're dragging out the metrics around retention rates, how many are coming back, their average spend, lifetime spend, unless you can get to those figures, it's never very visible, is it? So
yeah, that incrementality of acquisition feels really like momentum, and it is. It is incremental. It's new customers versus, there's always an argument internally of like, oh, well, would these shoppers have bought this anyway? But, as Ritesh said, there's ways you can track that with the A/B testing within the email marketing tools or on site. So, I think it's really important to have a holistic view.
that's probably a really good point to finish on. So thank you very much, Caroline and Ritesh. That was really fascinating. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye.